Forbidden-looking information isn't proof. It's usually hype wearing a cape. You've seen it: a shiny badge, a locked padlock, a secret tip that sounds like it came from a spy novel, and suddenly you feel like you're in on the real truth. Myth 15 says, if it looks forbidden, it must be true. But gullibility lives in that moment between curiosity and confirmation bias, not in facts. In this video, we'll unpack that myth with plain language, real-life examples, and a few chuckles. We'll show simple checks you can do in minutes. Who wrote it? Where the numbers come from, whether one sensational claim stands alone, and what the consensus actually is. Expect everyday examples, like a supposed miracle diet for 5 easy steps, or a hidden story about your favorite celeb, that crumble once you ask simple questions. By the end, you'll have practical tools to separate real information from mystery noise, save time, and keep your brain from being tricked by fear dressed as truth. Stay tuned for the quick, friendly guide that turns mystery into clarity. The allure of forbidden information. Information that feels forbidden has a magnetic pull. The simplest reason is curiosity. Our brains respond to novelty with a small spark of pleasure when we glimpse something we aren't supposed to see. When a claim is labeled secret, hidden, or behind a wall, the curiosity gap widens and we fill the space with guesses and stories. We fear missing out on something important, so the urge to know grows louder. In short, forbidden info promises a shortcut, a tease, a clue to power. Daily life offers a steady stream of such pulls. A popular app teases a secret beta feature, and people scramble to sign up, even if the feature is limited or staged. A coworker hints at a policy change that reveals who's really in charge, and conversations at the coffee machine turn louder. We chase the mystery because it makes ordinary days feel a bit more charged. The internet loves a mystery with a simple label like leaked or exclusive. It sells clicks and attention. Forbidden information often looks credible because it uses plausible language and the trappings of authority, such as a leaked memo or an internal document. Yet those signals can be faked. A screenshot can be doctored. A source can be anonymous and uncheckable. The more a claim asks you to believe first and verify later, the more caution you should exercise. Sensational headlines, plus a few tight quotes, can feel persuasive even when the core facts are thin. People can be drawn in by vivid detail and the promise of a dramatic turn. To navigate this, slow down and check the basics. Ask where the claim comes from and whether independent sources back it up. Look for corroboration from reliable outlets and multiple perspectives. Check dates and context. Something that fits now might have been true earlier or later for different reasons. If more evidence would help, wait for it. Notice your own reaction. Does the claim feel exciting because it aligns with your beliefs? If so, pause and test it against reality. Treat forbidden claims as provisional and testable. You'll be less likely to be pulled in by a shiny lure. How we mistake prohibition for truth. Fact: when information is labeled forbidden, many people treat it as more credible. This isn't magic, just a mix of curiosity, social signaling, and how our minds work. We tend to assume that what's off limits hides something worth knowing. A coworker whispers about a top secret policy, and suddenly the details feel heavier than plain truth. A little humor helps here. Secrecy can sound like a badge of power, even when the actual facts aren't that strong. Prohibition invites drama and a sense of insider knowledge. We fill in the gaps with guesses, debates flare, and mystery gets a louder spotlight than plain facts. The more something is kept under wraps, the more we hear that it must be important or proven, even if no solid proof exists. A post claims a cure or a shortcut and tags it with still under wraps, and the message gains traction because secrecy sounds like a hint of truth. The effect is practical in daily life, too. Marketing tends to lean on the idea that restricted details equal real value, so people lean in just to hear what's withheld. To untangle the trap, check the basics without relying on the secrecy badge. Look for independent sources that can be checked by anyone, not just insiders. See if there are clear steps you could take to verify the claim, even in small, everyday ways. Consider who benefits from keeping something secret and who would gain from you believing it. If the only thing you hear is a whispered claim without solid support, it's a signal to pause rather than a signal that truth has arrived. In real life, the forbidden pull shows up in glossy ads, rumor-filled chats, and online hype. A product might boast a secret formula, while the ingredients are common sense, or a story about a locked-away study can be more about storytelling than documentation. Humor often hides in plain sight here. People laugh at the drama of the supposed confidential details, yet some still treat the drama as evidence. The bottom line is simple. Secrecy alone doesn't certify truth. Treat forbidden as a cue to look closer, not as a shortcut to believe. Truth tests. Evidence, sources, and context. A claim that feels secret or forbidden isn't automatically true. Truth tests examine three pillars: evidence, sources, and context. Evidence is the material that backs up a claim. That material can be data, experiments, official records, or carefully described observations. If you can't point to anything like that, beware. Good evidence is something that others can check and replicate. Trust but verify. Bad evidence relies on vibe, anonymous posts, or one-off anecdotes. Look for concrete details, numbers, methods, and where the data came from. If there is no clear source, proceed with caution. Sources matter as much as the claim itself. Credible sources tend to be transparent about who wrote them, who funded them, and whether they have expertise in the topic. Check if the source is reputable and whether other trusted outlets cite it. Beware of sources that cherry-pick data, misattribute quotes, or hide the chain of evidence behind flashy graphics. Context shows why a fact matters, how it came about, and what else is true at the same time. Without context, numbers wobble. A graph can rise for many reasons, not all of them meaningful to the claim you are testing. Read surrounding text, check dates, and ask what else changed. In daily life, apply these checks before sharing something online or deciding to buy a miracle solution. Stay curious. Verification toolkit, methods, and criteria. Looking at information that seems locked or secret often sparks interest more than careful thinking. Secrecy isn't proof, and that gap between mystery and truth is where verification steps in. The verification toolkit helps separate solid evidence from hype by laying out practical methods and clear criteria. It favors simple checks over clever storytelling and practical steps over flashy claims. Methods include checking the credibility of sources, seeking independent confirmation, and examining the strength of the evidence. Ask who wrote it, who funded it, and whether others have reached the same conclusion. If a post says a new supplement cures a condition, look for official health guidance, peer-reviewed studies, or statements from recognized experts. Look for primary sources like study reports or official analyses, and treat secondary summaries with caution. Use straightforward tests like confirming that the claim can be traced to a reputable outlet, or that the data behind it actually exists and are accessible. When an image appears dramatic, try a reverse image search to see where it really came from and whether it's used in a different context. Keep an eye on how the information is framed. Sensational language often hides weaker evidence. Practical notes help here. Save the original links, compare multiple sources, and watch for missing steps or omitted details. Criteria offer a simple yardstick. Accuracy means the claim aligns with what the evidence shows. Authority means the source has relevant knowledge and a track record in the field. Bias and transparency flag how much the source might want you to think a certain way. Relevance asks if the information actually applies to the question at hand. Verifiability means you can check the underlying data or documents yourself. Reproducibility adds a sense of reliability when others can observe the same results under similar conditions. When you see a mix of solid data and vague promises, that combination deserves a closer look. If you can't verify the core facts or trace them to a credible origin, treat the claim with healthy skepticism. To apply the toolkit in real life, Pause before you react, identify what kind of claim it is, and gather a few sources with different perspectives. Check official channels first, government pages, established medical organizations, or recognized research groups before you share a bold verdict. Look for concrete evidence, not just anecdotes, and note any conflicts of interest that could color the message. If the claim rests on a single study or a single reporter, that's a red flag worth inspecting further. Compare what you find with mainstream sources and see if independent experts reach similar conclusions. Keep a little notebook or file with quick notes on sources, what was claimed, and why it passed or failed your checks. If something still feels shaky after your checks, give it a pause and come back later with fresh eyes. A healthy habit is to test claims against everyday experience. If it contradicts common sense or everyday observations, it's worth a second look. Humor helps here too. A claim that sounds like a secret recipe from a dusty attic usually needs more than a catchy headline to stand up. Pitfalls to watch: bandwagon, fear, and bias. The bandwagon effect pulls us toward accepting something because lots of others seem to buy in, not because the idea stands on solid ground. A post hints at a secret workaround, and suddenly it feels trustworthy simply because it's shiny and popular. That social momentum can make weak evidence look convincing, like a crowd chanting in unison until the melody sounds true. The truth, though, doesn't get proven by how many people claim it. Fear is a powerful nudge that makes people act before they think. Messages that scare you into urgency press you to decide now, often with little room for careful checking. When fear takes the stage, you tend to remember the scare more than the source, and you're more willing to accept a tidy story that promises safety or certainty. It's the sort of bait that makes even obvious overstatements feel urgent and real. Bias shapes what we notice and what we skip over, quietly guiding our judgments without us realizing it. If a claim lines up with what you already believe, you're quicker to accept it, sometimes ignoring disconfirming facts tucked in plain sight. The availability mindset makes dramatic stories feel true because they're easy to recall, not because they're well supported. That mix can turn everyday rumors into something you feel you saw with your own eyes, even when you didn't. To guard against these traps, slow down and check the actual evidence before you share or act. Look at who wrote it, what data backs it up, and whether independent sources confirm a claim. Be wary of sensational language and promises that sound too good or too alarming. If it feels thrilling but you can't verify the basics, give it a day and see if the facts still hold up. A calm, curious habit beats a loud headline every time. Cultivating a skeptical mindset. Facts show that secrecy can lure people in more than it should. The idea that something is forbidden or hidden can make it feel special, which can push people to believe it without question. A skeptical mindset is not about being suspicious of everything, but about checking what supports a claim before acting on it. When a post claims you've found a secret shortcut, it helps to pause and test the claim like you would a recipe you're unsure about. Start by asking simple questions that anyone can answer. Who is making the claim, and what exactly are they claiming? What evidence backs it up, and is the same evidence available from independent sources? Does the source have a reason to push this idea, or a debt to someone who would benefit from you believing it? Look for proof that can be tested, not just loud statements. If the claim feels secretive or protected, that alone isn't proof. It's a signal to look closer, not a sign to accept it. We all fall for quick, secretive appeals now and then. A simple human bias called authority bias makes us trust a claim because it's coming from someone who sounds confident or part of a trusted circle, even if the real proof isn't solid. Another trap is the secrecy lure. If something is labeled forbidden, it must be better or more true, right? Not necessarily. A practical way to counter that is to check what mainstream experts say, what credible studies show, and whether there are credible criticisms of the claim. If the only support is a dramatic story with little data, the claim deserves skepticism, not celebration, and certainly not immediate adoption. In daily life, cultivate tiny habits that keep your brain honest without killing curiosity. Pause before sharing something that sounds flashy or restricted. Look for at least 2 independent, reliable sources that can be read by someone without fancy training. Try a small, safe test if it's a health or safety claim, and see whether the claim stands up under scrutiny rather than under hype. Keep a running list of claims you once believed because they felt forbidden and later turn out to be weak or wrong. A pinch of humor helps here, like reminding yourself you don't need a secret handshake to know what makes sense. With practice, your skeptical mindset becomes a useful tool, not a party pooper. That wraps myth 15. If information looks forbidden, it must be true. The truth isn't wearing a velvet mask. It shows up with receipts, sources, and clear explanations. A claim that sounds secret or banned isn't proof. When you see something labeled as forbidden, ask, who says so? Where's the proof? Can first check the source myself. Look for solid evidence, named experts, dates, and if other trustworthy sources say the same thing. Watch for red flags, no sources, wild leaps in logic, or promises of a magical shortcut. In everyday life, this shows up in clickbait, chain emails, and secret diet tips that vanish when you check them. If you enjoyed unpacking this, give the video a like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves a good myth-busting session. First, I'd love to hear myths you've run into in the wild. Drop them in the comments. Next up, we'll go through quick, practical steps to verify sources fast, and we'll test a few real-world examples together. Thanks for sticking with me. See you soon for more curious, down-to-earth debunking.